Croeso i Heb Asid, cyfres o bodlediadau gan Archifau Gogledd Ddwyrain Cymru. Yma yn Archifau Gogledd Ddwyrain Cymru mae gennym filoedd o gofnodion hanesyddol sy'n cwmpasu bron 900 mlynedd o hanes yr ardal leol. Mae'r ddogfen gynharaf sydd gennym ar hyn o bryd yn dyddio 1138 ac rydym yn casglu eitemau cyfredol hefyd. Ein gwaith ni yw nid yn unig edrych ar ôl y cofnodion hyn ar gyfer cenedlaethau'r dyfodol, ond hefyd enyn diddordeb bobl yn Rheftadaeth Gogledd Ddwyrain Cymru. Mae'r archifau'n llawn o straeon am bobl go iawn ac mae Heb Asid yn gyfres o straeon digidol a phodlediadau sy'n archwilio'r straeon hyn. Bydd y benod hon yn cael ei chyflwyno yn Saesneg, ond cadwch lygad am gynnwys Cymraeg gennym yn y dyfodol.
In 2021, a number of copies of the Rayoneer were donated to our collections at North East Wales Archives. These were the staff magazines for the Courtaulds factories across the UK. In this collection, we have 226 copies from 1931 to 1958. Courtaulds was a UK-based manufacturer of fabric, clothing, artificial fibres and chemicals. It was established in 1794 and went on to be the world's leading man-made fibre production company. At its height, Courtaulds employed over 10,000 people at 4 sites in North East Wales, including 3 factories in Fflint, which were Aber Works, Deeside Mills and Works, as well as Greenfield in Holywell. It was the main employer in Fflint and the second largest in Flintshire. I decided to speak to our archivist Liz Newman to get a bit more information about how the Rayoneer magazines came to be part of our collections.
In 2021, a gentleman rang us up to ask if we'd be interested in taking some of the Rayoneer magazines from the Courtaulds factory in Flint. The person who wanted to donate them to the archives had worked for the Courtaulds for about 30 years and he'd collected magazines every month while he worked there, so he was even featured in some of them. When we actually got the magazines to the archives, I was the archivist who was tasked with cataloguing them, and I was fascinated to see how much detail was in them about the factory itself. Courtaulds is like a textile business, but I was also more interested really in the workers. Yes. There was lots of lovely photographs of the employees who'd worked in factories and lots of variety in the type of things that were featured. I really enjoyed seeing the social lives of factory workers and how they'd gone on trips together and even on holidays. So I was particularly interested in the women featured in the magazines because we don't really have many first-hand records of women, especially in the 1930s to 50s, which is when the magazines sort of span. And it really brought to life the kind of variety of jobs they had and the type of leisure activities they did as well. The magazine was almost like a monthly diary of what the women were up to.
So how did you promote the Rayoneer magazine so that people knew about them being here in our archive collections?
In 2023, we were asked to create an exhibition for a conference which Women's Archive of Wales was holding at Glyndŵr University in Wrexham. And I just remembered the Rayoneer magazines and thought, wow, they'd make a really great basis for an exhibition about women workers. So I decided to use that as our theme. But just around the same time, we were asked to host a student placement from Glyndŵr University for one of their history students. And so I wondered if I could combine the two projects. So I asked the student to help identify interesting stories from the Rayoneer magazines and we help us to put together the exhibition.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to have Suzanne Jones, who is a really lovely student, and she had a great interest in Courtaulds herself because some of her family members had actually worked there. So she was an ideal person to really help us with the task.
What was the exhibition about?
Well, we decided to concentrate on certain themes for the exhibition, which included attitudes to women in the workplace and sort of how this might have changed over the period from 1930 to 1950. The type of jobs which women did, because they were really varied, and I was quite surprised at some of the, the breadth they were involved in. And then we also wanted to feature the leisure activities because they were quite exciting, including the Rayon Queen, which was a beauty competition. The workers could compete to represent the factory across the UK at all sorts of different events, and they got to wear lots of beautiful clothes and act like a fashion model, so that was quite exciting.
So how did the exhibition and conference go?
It went really well and people showed a really good interest in the exhibition. And after that, I felt it was a shame to just waste it on one event. So I decided to have a Courtaulds themed open day that year as a part of our Open Doors event, which happens every year in September. So we contacted some people who might be interested in speaking at the event about their time working at Courtaulds. And we also asked permission of the Women's Archive of Wales because they'd made a really nice film about women working in factories across Wales, which included some workers from Flintshire Courtaulds. We were lucky enough to get 2 speakers at the actual day, and then we had the film and the exhibition. So when we advertised the event, we were really amazed at the level of interest because it was absolutely fully booked within a few days of advertising. Yeah. And we quickly filled all the seats that were available, and we also had a waiting list. It was quite good. And the event was so successful, everyone really enjoyed it, and we decided to have a second one because of the waiting list. So we invited everyone who couldn't come to the first event. So that happened in November, and then that was part of Explore Your Archive campaign, which is also an annual event. And that was fully booked again.
Brilliant.
Obviously a lot of interest in Courtaulds within Flintshire and beyond.
Do you have many other Courtaulds records at North East Wales Archives?
No, unfortunately, we don't have many employee records at all at the archives. So if any of our listeners have any records that they would like to donate or deposit with us on loan, we'd be really interested in that. We are seeking to make our collection bigger to represent the factory a bit more. And also, if anyone is actually interested in looking at the Rayoneer magazines here, the originals, they're really welcome to come and visit. They're really worthwhile having a look at. If someone just wants to make an appointment, they're very welcome to come and have a look.
As Liz describes, the magazines really capture what it was like to work at Courtaulds during the 30s and through to the 50s. Each issue would include messages from the chairman and managing director of Courtaulds. There were regular features such as your health and beauty and news from all various sites, including those in Flintshire. It also included regular articles about employees, such as departmental gossip, and photographs of employees as well, especially those in sports and social clubs. There would also be details of employee weddings, as well as notices of births and funerals. I reached out to Suzanne, the student who worked with Liz to develop the exhibition, to see if she could tell us a bit more about her experience of working with the Rayoneer magazines and her time with us at North East Wales Archives. As you'll hear, Suzanne also found some personal connections within the pages of these magazines.
I asked where I would prefer to go for my placement, and I asked for here. Yeah. And then when the tutor put me in touch with Liz, she popped through what the topic was going to be. And to my delight, it was the Women's Archive Wales exhibition up in Glyndŵr, focusing on Courtaulds based on the information given in the Rayoneer magazine. It really got my juices going. I was excited. I'm looking at my family heritage sort of aside from the degree that I was doing. And I know a lot about the seafaring side of my father's family, but not so much about my mum's. And she's from Flint, or off Flint, as they say. And it was an opportunity to get a little bit of a background on their family and heritage. The Rayoneers started in the early 30s, but it was quite interesting to look how they developed. Women got a fleeting mention, and not a very positive one either. But gradually there was more ethos given to the contribution of women in the workplace there.
I asked Suzanne about her favourite element of these magazines.
It's got to be the pictures. It's got to be the photographs that came alongside the magazines. The fashions, oh gosh, and the fabric that they produced, it's all synthetic. And of course it's like silk. It just puts us to shame these days. Some of the editions, they were looking at how to upgrade your fashion without great expense. Redoing a coat, putting new buttons on. Hats were such a big thing. And it was just lovely to see. Definitely the photographs. But on a personal note, it was the family that I spotted. And I think I've used this phrase. It was almost like a family reunion, that they were coming out the pages to say hello. And my Tide, he died when I was very small. I think I must have been about 4 or 5. So I didn't really know him very well. And just got this image of the old man sitting in the corner giving you sweets when you went to visit. But I saw him and his character came through some of the pictures. So that was a real joy for me. And I think that was one of the best things I took from the whole thing. I got to see him as a human being rather than itch your tide and don't go near his pigeons. You know, you could see his character come through, which is a bit bizarre really, because it's just like pages in a magazine, but you can tell he was a jolly sort of cheeky chappy by the images that they portrayed.
Did they do a specific article on him, or is it just a picture with a bit of an annotation?
He popped up a few times. They referred to his hobby as a pigeon fancier, which was a big thing in Flint. I had a picture of him there with his pigeon, and he was a founder member of the Pigeon Society in Aber Works, and it's still going now, although it's only got 5 members. Tide was there at the instigation of it all.
Suzanne read out one of the articles about her Tide.
It's Mr. John Bithell, engineering, expertly examining one of his flyers. One of the founder members of Flint Homing Society has been a fancier for the last 50 years. He was a gold watch recipient in 1951 and has been with the company for 32 years. In 1951, he went down to London, as they do, or did, for their long service awards service. So the train would take them, the Welsh Dragon hanging at the station for all the people that were going down to get their awards. So they'd have a meal, there'd be speeches and everything, and they'd get their obligatory watch or clock or whatever. And I remember my Tide's clock, annoying thing it was. It went every 15 minutes. So, you know, you were having a good old chat and it'd go ping, 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 and then ping, 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 and then a bit more, and it's like, right, okay. Should imagine somewhere in the darkest recesses there must have been a storeroom full of these things that were going off all the time. But he went down to London, and then they took them on a tour, a bus tour. Not many people got the opportunity to go down to London back in the day, and there's a picture that strikes me of him getting on the bus, and he's turned to the camera with a cheeky little smile, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I know you, I know what you're made of. So that was the second sort of picture, and then there was somebody else's retirement, and he was in the background there. I think he worked in the electrical department for a long time, and then my uncles worked there, my mum worked there briefly before she got married, because then it was like a no-go. But her name was in one of the child registers, because they had to be certified fit to work when they went at 16, 15. And through my research, I found my mum's name there.
Suzanne and I also discussed the content you could find in the Rayoneer.
Lots of reports on social events. Old man Courtaulds, that was one of the things that was part of his ethos. If you look after them, they will look after you. And why should they not receive all the benefits that people in better circumstances financially receive? So they had tennis courts, they had a beautiful spring dance floor in Castle Canteen. There would be pantomimes, concerts, the show during the war, Workers' Playtime, that made 2 appearances at Flint. So without Courtaulds, Flint really wouldn't be much. It was the breath behind the town. And when it closed, it took a hammering. Now it's on the up. But it was grim, you know, like a lot of the towns along this coast. It was at the same time as the steelworks closed. So I had family that worked in the Somerset steelworks, my dad, my brothers, and aunties, sisters worked in Courtaulds.
Suzanne and I then chatted about one of the regular features of the magazine.
Oh, mainly for ladies.
Here's Suzanne reading a snippet of one of the Mainly for Ladies segments.
The ideal woman. The other day I set out to ask a lot of men what they admired most in women. For men are so critical, for all they depend on us in the long run for practically everything that matters. I picked out a doctor, an artist, a shop worker, an engineering student and a postman, and I've put down here and now exactly what they told me. Health and clear thinking. The doctor said I admire health more than anything else in a woman. This is not merely my reason after dealing with illness day in, day out. A healthy woman is one who has acquired and retained what is her birthright. She will be brave, wise and serene. Admirable qualities, all of those, and ones which go with good health. She needn't be clever. Sometimes the over-intelligent woman worries herself into sickness. The unhealthy mind will get down the strongest body before long. A woman's life is so made up of little tiresome things that she needs to be superlatively healthy-minded to triumph over them. Isn't that fabulous?
As mentioned earlier, we only have the Rayoneer up until 1958, but the Courtaulds factories in the region were open in some cases until 1989, so I was keen to speak to some of the staff that worked at Courtaulds during this later period, so we could learn more about their experience and also see if there were any similarities to what was captured in the Rayoneer during the earlier years. So we put out a call on our social media pages for any former staff members of Courtaulds that would be interested to come and chat with us, and we were really lucky to receive messages from a few former employees. One of these was Sandra, who worked at Aber Works in Flint during the 60s and 70s. Sandra asked if she could bring along her friend Cheryl, who also worked at the Aber Works in the coning department during the same time. Little did I know that when Sandra and Cheryl came to meet us to record this episode, it was actually the first time they'd seen each other in 40 years. Here, Sandra is speaking first.
67 we started there.
I was 15.
Yeah. We started really in the April. We were still in school, and on a Saturday morning they used to have a school to get you trained up, ready for when you were 15, and then as soon as you were 15 and left school, you could start work and you knew what you were doing, so that they didn't waste time and people weren't able to stop working to teach you what to do. So they used to have these Saturday mornings.
I was before that, wasn't I? Before you then, because I started there in the Christmas, because
Right.
how I know, I was 15 and apparently it must have been a Sunday, I was 16. I mean, you could walk from school straight to Courtaulds.
Yeah.
Simple as that. You finish school on Friday, you go interview on the Monday and you start on the Tuesday.
We tried to go in the Dublin, Cheryl and I, but you had to be a certain height, and they had this marker in the surgery. You went to surgery for a medical, and you had to be 5 foot something, and I was only 15, we were only 15, so we weren't 5 foot. So yarn was wrapped in stockinettes in them days, so we padded our feet under our sock with stockinettes, so that when I took my shoes off and I walked under the thing, I was tall enough, not thinking that on the first shift in the Dublin that I wasn't tall enough, was I, to reach up. But there was a reason why you had to be tall to reach above. So I ended up in the cone in that. Dublin was literally what it says. You'd have 2 cakes coming down and twisting and going into one. That's what that was.
When I first went there, I didn't go on the machines straight away. And I thought, this is not a bad little job, this. What they put me on, I thought, because I didn't know anything till I was 15. I thought, it's a bad little job, this. With the cones, but on the top of the cones, a little hole like that, and you had to put
An insert.
yeah, different colours, you know, red and blue. Just do all that. I was sitting down and that is great, this. I loved it. I got really into it and they moved me onto the coning. And I was like looking after all these lines. I'm thinking, wow. But in the end, when you're doing 10, you could do 20, couldn't you? Up and down to see if any of them snapped. Then you tied in a knot, scissors, done. Get it going again, you walk down there. And if they're all going, you just walked up and down, didn't you?
Sandra and Cheryl started off by telling me about the day-to-day aspects of working at Courtaulds.
The only thing they gave you was a pinny, and it was made of like calico material. And it had 2 pockets for you to put your waste in. I lived in Rosesna, up the top. So we had a minibus that picked you up and did the round of the mountain and got us to work in time, and then picked us up and took us round. I used to get on the bus 4:30 in the morning. I was the first on the bus, but I was the first off the bus going home. But I would get home about 2:30. I was earning more money than my husband when I got married. He was just coming out of his apprenticeship. I was bringing home twice what he was. We had a shop, you see, in Courtaulds, didn't we?
Oh yeah, twin sets. So jumpers and cardigans to match.
Yeah.
Twin sets, yeah.
You could buy yarn, material.
And they used to come around with ice cream in the summer and everything like that.
Oh, that juice with salt in.
Oh, that was horrible.
Oh, couldn't have fans in there.
Yeah, it was. It was hot in there.
And we had glass roof. They painted it, right? But that paint made the yarn look a funny colour and made it hard for you to see. It was horrible. We used to put these buckets of orange juice, salt in it. Oh, it was horrid. But the sick bay was a good thing as well, yeah. Everything from period pains to morning sickness, minor injuries, you know. You just went and didn't have to go off site to go to a hospital or anything, unless it was, you know, major. They were good in there.
You had the nurse there.
They had a married woman's shift. It was fitting in with the schools. A lot of ex-workers came back, because at one time, when you got married in Courtaulds, you had to stop working. Well, it was all cross, wasn't it, after the war? But when late 50s, they decided they needed the workforce back. Yeah. So those ex-workers were able to come back.
I did that in Castle Works.
I also got to talk to Sandra and Cheryl about the social activities that took place, including the famous Rayon Queen competition.
The Rayon Queen, it was lovely.
Stopped when in the mid-60s, didn't it?
Every year, yeah, it was lovely.
Like a beauty queen type thing.
Yeah. Rayon, because that's what we were working with, and that was in Castle Works, so it wasn't in Aber.
They held it there, and I think the Rayon Queen actually was a pathway into Miss Wales and bigger competitions.
I then asked them about their social life and friendships whilst they worked at Courtaulds.
But we all used to go out together and everything, didn't we? Yeah. We used to go out everywhere together. It was good. It was good.
Go to the Lido in Prestatyn.
Lido in
Prestatyn.
It's clear that they really valued the friendships they made on the factory floor, and they really put across a sense that staff were always happy to help each other, whether that was covering your machine whilst you had a break or crocheting you the latest 70s fashion.
You'd go into work and you'd say to somebody, "Oh, did you see that? Have you seen Mary want this?" Or, "Oh yeah, do you want one?" "Yeah, okay, go and get the yarn, go and get the material, and we'll do it for you." And they did. No charge. 1972 I finished. I was pregnant, yeah.
6 weeks I had off, that's all you had. That's all you had, 6 weeks off. Back to work. I worked from 15, and say I had, 2 years off in total with different things, until I was 65.
So you were there when they closed the factories then, were you?
Yeah.
Right. No, I'd left by then. Coming off the mountain, I was green. I was, when you think about it, I was so naive.
Naive. We were there though, weren't we?
Yeah. Good times. Hard work, long day for me. 4:30 till 3 o'clock. A long day, but so much fun.
You did learn a lot, because you come from school and your children. So you learn, you know how to control what to say, when not to say it, and what have you. I think Courtaulds is a good step to get out into the world. It was.
It was.
You had the banter there, you had a good laugh.
We worked hard. I wouldn't want my granddaughters at the age of 15 going there. But if you were to say to me when they were 18, there's a job for them in Courtaulds, I'd say, yeah, good.
I was also able to speak to another former employee, Colin, who shared his experience of working for Courtaulds in the late 70s to 80s, just before the factory started to close.
I worked at the Greenfield site. I was number 2 unit, that's over the railway line, and I worked there, started on shifts, and put me up in the spinning, which is where the actual yarn was made.
And when you say spinning, what does that involve?
Spinning was a lead bath of acid, which you put a lead piece of pipe in like an L shape, and on the end of it was a jet with a platinum coated face, and the jet had lots of holes in it, 19,000 times 500 or whatever. When you pushed it in the acid, viscose came out and it solidified, got hold of it, and come round a small drum, baker-like drum, which you call the goldie, wrapped it round 3 times, and then you tied it onto another piece, and off it went down there, down some drums to get stretched, and it went through some cutters to cut it into staples, and it got washed, dried and baled, and that was basically it.
Okay. So you said you worked at Flint as well beforehand. Was that the same job?
No. In Flint, I was at the start of the process in the pulp weighing. So there was 2 other lads who used to weigh the wood pulp on the set of rollers, snap the bands off, and then actually put it onto a stillage every 30 something kilos. I can't remember how. It's over 100 kilos on a stillage. So you put it on and take it away, and they would immerse that in, I think it was caustic soda, press it, mince it, dry it, add it with something else to make the viscose. But in Flint it was a continuous strand, like string, which went onto like what they called a cake. In Greenfield it was spinning, and then it used to go from a cake to the wrapping and washing.
It's very much more to it than I would have ever thought about all the different stages.
At Greenfield Valley Museum, they've actually got, I think it's a mixer and a churn, which they used to do.
So when did you start working at Flint first? What year was it and how old were you?
I think it was 1979. I just turned 18. I left Flint, made redundant because it closed, and to Greenfield, because my father worked there, he retired. So I applied. I got called into the offices, and they said, right, yeah, you passed it. And you had a medical before you actually got employed to make sure. And the sister said, what's this, smell vinegar, and then read off the card, and the blindness test, and then that was it. I said, right, start work on whatever day. I think it was a Monday. I worked 6 till 2 shifts. I got 2.5 days off.
And why did you choose Courtaulds? Was there a reason, or was it because your dad worked there?
It was either Courtaulds, the steelworks, or the pit. And because my father worked in Courtaulds, I chose Courtaulds. Pay was a little bit more, I suppose. That was it, really. There was nothing else around, only small businesses. Courtaulds were one of the main employers in the area.
Did you live nearby?
I've always lived there. I lived about 3 miles away from Greenfield. When I walked into the locker room, I think it was 3 people said hello, and I knew them, which was nice, because walking into a room, you know, especially if you were young, and I can still remember most of them. Yeah, all nice people.
How long did your dad work there for?
31 years, I think it was. After 30 years, they took you away for a week or 4, I think it was a week, and they presented you with you could have a choice of a gold watch, a coffee set, or a carriage clock, and it's engraved. And my nephew's got my father's watch, got a pearl face on, the winding was gold, quite expensive watch. So
I guess it kind of showed that how much they value their employers.
My auntie worked in the Flint site. She had a carriage clock, and one of my sisters have got it now. It's over 40 years old, more than that, and it's still there. Still got its colour, everything. It's engraved on the back too.
So what was the atmosphere like at work? So not so much the working atmosphere, but with your colleagues, and did you have a good group of friends? And there was a good social scene?
We had a few nights out at Christmas, and one fella would take like £1 a week, and we'd go for a Christmas night out. And Courtaulds itself would organise darts and dominoes tournaments, a snooker tournament, a quiz into the clubhouse in Greenfield. We'd go down there and play darts.
So would you say Courtaulds was a good employer?
Yes.
You mentioned about how they paid a bit more than the other.
Paid fair wage. They had a bonus system. For what work you'd done, it wasn't hard work. You had to put up with a lot of things. If you went down to the washing part, it was really hot because of the steam. In the spinning, you had the smell.
And how long did you work there?
Just over 6 years, and then it closed. So I got some good memories and some of the people.
So it was reported that some of the chemicals that were used in the production of rayon would have, some health risks. Were you aware of any of these type of risks when you worked there?
No. They give you safety goggles, a hat, and gloves, and an old cobbler's knife, which you sharpened and you carried with you. In a spinning, you had to have your knife because it was your lifeline. So if you got caught in like a small tyre, take your hand off, or we just break your arm. And our foreman, a large drum, and it was like a car tyre building up, and one lad cut it straight off with his knife. It was about 2 or 3 inches thick. But unfortunately, the foreman was standing there as well, and he cut him across his legs. But he never cut his skin. He just cut his trousers, thankfully. And then the foreman just looked and walked away. That was it. He never got interfered again.
So you, when it closed, you had to get another job.
Yeah.
Where did you work after?
I went to a place in Flint, and I worked there for 6 years again, making the conveyor belt joinings.
Overall, you enjoyed working at Courtaulds?
Yeah, I did, yeah. If it was back there now, I'd still apply now. It was a fantastic place to work. The friends that you made and had, they'll still be there now. I think most of them, I've seen 1 or 2. Most of them passed away because they were older gentlemen. But they were nice. If you see them outside, they'd never pass you. But yes, it was a lovely place to work. You got, I think it was 25 days holiday, paid, and a share money, which was good, yeah. Christmas, you got a little present for your children. You got a selection box. You say, how many children you got? I got 4. So you get 4 selection boxes when you only had 1. They had a Christmas party for the younger children, and the disc was from up to 16, and which was really, really good of them, like.
I hope this episode has provided a good introduction to the Rayoneer magazines and the stories that can be found in each issue. A really big thank you to Liz and Suzanne for providing some background info to how the magazines came to be in our collections. And massive thank you to Sandra, Cheryl and Colin for sharing their experiences of working at Courtaulds. If you'd like to see copies of the Rayoneer in person, the details of how to book an appointment will be in the description box for this episode.
Mae ein archifau'n llawn o storïau. Ewch i'n gwefan I ddarganfod mwy. www.agydec.cymru. I weld ein straeon digidol, chwiliwch amdanom ar YouTube.